Hello and welcome to day one of the Sustainable Events Summit. My name's Susan Duncombe. I'm the founder of Secret Spaces. Secret Spaces is a hand-picked collection of amazing event venues and was born out of my belief that the backdrop to an event is what makes it an unforgettable experience. Recent months has made us all more aware of the environment around us and our impact upon it. Think back to lockdown when we all appreciated the cleaner air that we were breathing because cars and planes had stopped. And it's that awareness that has driven me to host this Sustainable Event Summit and to really shine the spotlight on sustainability in relation to events. I'd now like to hand over to Lucy Agace from Go Green Sustainability, who is going to share with us an overview of what the full definition of sustainability is and how it can be applied within the events and hospitality industries. Over to Lucy.
Humanity currently uses the equivalent of 1.5 planets to provide the resources necessary to produce the goods and absorb waste in a year. So just think about that for a moment. And I think hopefully you'll read that and you'll suddenly think, well, how is that possible? But we do overuse the earth far too much. And if you think about everything you see and touch it's a natural resource. It comes from the earth. Somebody digs it up and somebody makes it into something. And we've been doing this so much for so long. The earth really is not able to recuperate. Right now, the earth needs 1.5 years to regenerate what it's used in a year. And every year that just gets worse. The UN say, if this doesn't change, then by the 2030s, we will need 2 planets to keep up with demand. So we all, looking on a more personal lifestyle choice level, and people talk about this all the time on the TV now and on the internet, social media. It is important to try and make your own lifestyle choices, not just in your business. It's got to be now across the board where we all pull together and come up with the same answers and the same solutions. The solutions are all there, very easy to find. For instance, when I say that, if you actually, as a business, if you started the process with a company that can provide you with a certification for being more sustainable, they will come up with all the standards for you. You don't have to look very far to find them, and that's something that we do. And it's surprisingly not as expensive as people think, at least we're not. So our economy is bigger than our host, which is our planet, and we are now living beyond our means. Now, that's something I feel very strongly about. I do not live beyond my means, and I know a lot of people do, but essentially that's what the whole world is doing, and it's something that we all need to look at. And in business terms, if we are burning through half our capital every year, if we actually knew we were doing that, we wouldn't do it. It's not sustainable. And there's that word again, sustainable. It's just not sustainable to run your business in that way. And that's what we're doing. Problem being, of course, that the world is run by lots of different countries and lots of different types of people. And we all have to come together, which is kind of what the COVID virus is doing. We're all suffering from the same thing at the same time, and we're all coming together. And I think this summit is perfectly timed. I'm hoping that people will wake up and really see that we do have to work together in order to, I won't say save ourselves, but in 10 years time is not very far away. It's going to come by very, very quickly. The sooner we start the changes, the sooner we will solve the problems. And whilst I was doing the Cambridge University course in sustainable leadership, where all these scientific facts have come from, that's my reference, Paul Gilding, who's a fellow, explains why infinite growth on a planet with finite resources is unsustainable. And governments talk about gross domestic products and economic growth. Economic growth is absolutely not possible anymore. It's not sustainable. Governments have got to stop talking like that. It cannot happen. That was crammed into us on this course. things have to change, and they have to change. The sooner they change, the better. But I did put, so you can watch in your own time, I put the link to his TED Talk, which, I mean, I've put a few points in it. He talks for a lot longer. I think he talks for half an hour or 20 minutes. It's well worth a look. He's very good. So I've put that link on there for you well, you can have a look at it whenever you have the moment.
And Lucy, I'll drop that into the chat box before the end of the session so that people can pick that link up from the chat box.
Okay, great. Should lubricate my throat. So to start with, does anyone have any thoughts or questions about that, or anything they think I've missed that should be there? Be very happy to take that. Okay, so Susan, would you like to go to the next
There we go.
slide? Okay, so what I was saying earlier about sustainability is really the way businesses need to implement holistic system-wide approach to addressing sustainability. And in order to do that, they need to look at the 3 pillars, which is people, planet, and profit. And my next slides will be about those 3 subjects and going into more detail about, well, you can take from it things that you can implement in your own businesses. So here are the 5 R's. So the 3 P's and the 5 R's. Recycle, reuse, repurpose, refuse, and reduce. And actually, refuse is a very important one. You have to start with refuse. You have to start saying, no, we don't want to do it like this, we want to do it like that. So if you have suppliers, you talk to your suppliers and you say, no, we don't want to receive things in cardboard boxes that we then have to put into the recycling. We want to start using things that we give back to you. So we have a circular system going where you give it to us, we give it back to you, and it's made obviously from a robust material, and it just keeps going round, and then there is no waste. So that cardboard doesn't go into the recycling. So you need to look at how your supply chains can be changed so that you don't have the waste to deal with in the first place. And then the other 4 R's come into play.
Lucy, in your experience, are suppliers and companies open to those sorts of conversations? Is it just that people do the things the way they've always done them because that's the way they've always done them? And actually, if you ask the question, suppliers are willing to have that conversation?
Yes, they are. I think it's twofold. Yes, they are. And yes, there's always those that want to carry on doing things the way they used to do them or the way they've always done them. Which is a little bit about where we are. We have to get the stick in the muds out of the mud and moving them forward so that everyone is on the same page. But yeah, no, it's usually very well received, especially as right now any business is good business, and if they want to keep your business, then you don't have to give them that kind of incentive. But if they want to keep your business, you can say, well, this is what we're going to have from you. This is what we accept now. These are the new levels of doing business. But I'm sure that the actual dialogue would be, on a very friendly way.
Sure.
But yeah, for sure. So dealing with the planet, how you affect the planet, it sounds like a very large word. But yes, you're dealing with your local area, your local communities. This is the part of the planet side that we're talking about. So you're going to try and reduce your environmental impacts. And I've got 3 headings: pollution, harmful chemicals, and waste. Obviously, some of those are very, very, there's a lot to them. They're very broad. Pollution, so the main pollution is your energy and it's greenhouse, I put greenhouse gas emissions, your CO2 emissions. It would be, it's amazing how much transportation. So for instance, importing, I don't know, some exotic fruit from the Far East, the actual CO2 footprint, the carbon footprint of that on a menu is just a disaster. You need to, one needs to create menus around sourcing local produce as much as possible. And, you know, people have said to me, well, what about the people that want all these exotic things and they want all this and they want all that? And one of the hard parts, perhaps this is bringing up in trying to run a more sustainable business, is that we just do have to change. We have to stop having these things and offering these things. And this is where businesses can actually shape consumer demand. And, you know, governments aren't doing it. You know, we know that, I mean, some governments are better than others. And I'm not going to name any particular ones. But, you know, we have to lead by example, businesses and people. And I think it's a bit like, I went into a supermarket last year and I said, well, how come you're using so much plastic to package all your fruit and veg? I mean, let's not even go there. And then I think it was on TV shortly after that, and their answer literally was, well, because consumers want that. So they're saying, they're hiding behind consumer demand for change, for how they display or how they sell their products. Talking about food. But I mean, if you look at the way you order things on Amazon or online and things come packaged with plastic wrapping and those little styrofoam doodly things so things don't get broken, all those things, consumer demand will shape what's provided to us. So how we react when we go out, how we shop, what we say, what we do, it's going to have an effect. So you and I, everyone can have a positive effect. Just need to remember that and nail it down and never forget it. Every single person makes a difference. So I'll get off my high horse now. Harmful chemicals, obviously, with the environment, very important to make sure anything you dispose of is not containing any, and you're not spraying anything, fertilizers, bio-friendly. Try not to use any pesticides. If you have an outside space, not everybody does. And water treatment. If you've got a body of water in your outside space, then make sure it's clean. Keep it clean. Make it the best it can be. Wildlife will thrive in areas that are kept well. But I'm going to come to that later, or rather further down. And then waste management is huge. So I've written plastic, food, metal, paper, cans. I mean, the list can go on. Joining your own recycling centres, and I think a lot of businesses now have companies that take away their waste. Make sure you have one that disposes of it in a responsible way. Don't assume they do. Just ask the question. Again, you're creating consumer demand, you're creating public awareness. Every time you ask the question, it makes a difference. So please keep doing that.
Yeah, and that's interesting, Lucy, because I know Crumplebury, which is one of the venues that we work with, and in fact, Joe Evans from Crumplebury is hosting a session for us on Wednesday. But understanding their full waste management process from during the lockdown, it was kind of one of their focuses, was actually understanding what happened to their waste when it was taken away from the site. And they'd made assumptions about how it was being dealt with, but actually it wasn't being dealt with in a way that they felt was sustainable. And so they put in place a full review. And I think you're right, it's not necessarily about it's about not making assumptions, isn't it? And asking the question and looking for different ways to manage waste, which is more environmentally friendly.
Yeah, and I was part of a movement in Barbados a number of years ago called Be the Change. Some of you may have heard of it, but one of the big things they were talking about was, the garbage man or the rubbish collector, and they come and take the waste away, and it's gone. But of course, it doesn't go anywhere. It's still here. It's just not. You just can't see it anymore. And I think we have become that kind of society where we don't worry about where it's gone. We don't worry about what happens after we've finished using it. And we're going to have to change to definitely thinking about where it goes and how are we disposing of it. Just take simple thing like recycling. Every single council, it seems to have a different except recycling things. And I see it all the time where I live in Brighton. And people put the most extraordinary things in the recycling bin that because they don't think about it, unfortunately. So it is something that we do need to think about in every day and what we do every day. But yeah, thank you, Susan. So another thing that would affect planet is reducing consumption. So the less water you consume, the more water there will be left. Water is a hugely valuable resource, natural resource, and as climate change keeps changing every year, which it will do, it'll only get worse. Things are going to become more extreme. So these hot weather, we're going to have cold, we're going to have days of lots of rain, months without any rain. I mean, the planet's climate is changing to extremes. Water collection, so you've got to watch your water consumption, and one of the things you can counteract, a positive thing you can counteract that with, is to have some kind of water catchment. We pick up a hose in this country and we sort of squirt it around and we just water the plants in the summer and water the grass. But what happens if we can't do that? Because that time will come. If we don't look after our natural resources, then they won't be able to look after us. And it is up to us to make that change, because as you can see where we are now, nature is making that change. It's doing it already, and we have to catch up. Energy, anyway, so water, there's aeration showers and taps you can buy, dual flush toilets, and you have to have a handle, a hose stop, and intelligent irrigation if you have irrigation. I know I have clients from Barbados who will be listening to this, and they'll know what I mean by that. That's sort of, you don't have irrigation coming on at 1 o'clock in the middle of the day where it's hot and sunny and the water won't last very long. You have it coming on at the end of the day. Energy, renewable. The first thing a business can do is switch to a green or renewable energy supplier. There are many of those. It is a bit of a minefield, but if anybody wants to know more, I can. And it depends on where you live, so I can't answer right now. But there are, I can sort of aim people in the right direction. Energy efficient appliances, SPV, that's solar photovoltaic, and controlled lighting. So you've got lighting sensors rather than just leaving lights on all night long. And obviously LED light bulbs, which most people have now switched to. Again, providing energy is a huge factor in, as we all know, in greenhouse gas emissions, which is causing the problem of the heating up of the earth, and also the ocean acidification, which I haven't actually mentioned yet, but that is another huge negative impact of global warming. Reduce your food consumption. Yeah, let's do that. And also how we get it, which I touched on earlier. Let's get locally supplied and seasonal preferences, and reduce the packaging and how it gets to you, which again we touched on before. Improving biodiversity. This is something, I don't know if anyone has seen the latest David Attenborough film, A Life on Our Planet, which is it's his witness statement to his life. So it's on Netflix and very, very much worth watching. He's released from his BBC shackles, let's say. So he does actually hit home quite hard, but he also ends with a positive note and how it is possible. We can do what we need to do in the time allowed. And one of the things he does talk about is creating rewilding outside spaces. So if you have a lot of space, it doesn't actually matter what sort of space you've got. Try and introduce some rewilding area where you don't mow the lawn, you plant local British Isles seeds, native flowering plants. Why do I say that? Because exotic plants need different fertilizers, they need different pesticides. They're not used to living in this atmosphere, probably colder than where they've come from, and they need different attention. We need to plant things that need less water, less attention. They can survive on their own and flourish on their own, and then our endemic species of insects and wildlife will also flourish. And we need our pollinators, as we know. Any questions? How are we doing on time, Susan?
It's 10:30.
Going a bit slow? No, okay, probably okay. Okay, so let's look at profit. How does profit fit into this trilogy? Well, without businesses, there would be no jobs or economy. Without natural resources and people, there would be no business. So they have to work hand in hand, and businesses need to balance their sustainability books. That's something hopefully people will take away, just that little sentence there. Make a profit and at the same time pay a living wage to your employees and conserve and protect the natural resources the business uses in its and inhabits. Sorry, the business uses and inhabits. And that would be your surrounding habitats, depending on what your business is. And that could be, you might be by the sea, you might have a river. So you're looking after whatever's around your area. Legal requirements. So currently the UK doesn't have an awful lot of sustainability legal requirements for businesses, especially in events. Mostly, as everyone would already know, it's around health and safety requirements. But what will the future hold? And I've put that in there really to, we think we're sitting here very comfortably, well, okay, we're not so comfortably at the moment, but putting COVID aside and this year aside for the moment, everything's okay, everything's all right. We don't have to worry too much about what the government's going to do in the future, but actually it's something that we do need to consider, because in France, for instance, and other countries in Europe, they have much stricter legal requirements, not necessarily for small businesses, but some of the larger businesses, they actually have requirements where they have to provide information and diligence on not just the health and safety, but the human rights of their employees and also how they treat their environment. That's a legal requirement in France at the moment. In fact, it came in a number of years ago. We don't have that in England. But I suspect once the government have got over this year, and I think possibly next year, because obviously then we're also coming out of the EU, so they've got that to deal with as well. But I feel sure that within 5 years, there will be legal requirements, I think, for sustainability. Anyhow, I thought I'd pop that in there for people to think about. And who are your stakeholders? Who are the people that are most affected by your business? So that's obviously going to be your employees, but also your customers, your supply chains, your management. You will need strong management to run these sustainability practices. You're going to need somebody training so that your staff are all on the same page. Everybody knows why you're doing it and how it equates to their job. That will also improve staff engagement, but I'll get to that in a moment. And a strong local economy. So you're building up your local economy. I think I missed one. Choosing to collaborate and build business connections within your local towns, villages, and communities. If you do that, then the money stays local, and that's when you're building your local economy. And the more people that have money that live near you, the more likely they're going to spend their money with you and those around you. And it just brings up prosperity, safeguards livelihoods, it raises the living standards and the morale. You know, everyone is feeling better, and obviously right now we need a little bit of that. obviously it goes without saying that it's a difficult time for the event industry and hospitality completely at the moment, and notwithstanding. So these are thoughts for how to build better for next year, let's say.
Yeah, and Lucy, I mean, it's interesting that you talked about collaboration and community there, because I think they were, again, two of the themes that have come out of the last few months. A lot of businesses have been collaborating with each other in a way that they perhaps would never have thought about doing before, and the importance of your local community has become something, again, that people are much more aware of. And so as a business within hospitality and events, if you can demonstrate through your sustainability credentials that you are considering and supporting and growing the local community, then it will put you, I think, in good standing. And I think everything that I'm reading and seeing suggests that more and more people are going to be looking for sustainability when choosing all, any manner of things, but certainly when it comes to planning an event. We do actually have a question from somebody, one of the attendees, Emma. As an event designer, I'd like to ask Lucy if she thought live plants for decoration were more sustainable than fake ones which can be reused.
Yes, and I'm coming to that in one of the later slides. I'm coming to what event planners can look for and what event venues and organisers can actually provide. Very much so, yes, it's moving away from cut flowers now to live flowers, and also to use greenery like ivy, and just going out into the wherever you're hosting and taking from the garden. It's not something I've done, but apparently this is something that, I mean, it can look fantastic. And yes, definitely. Good point.
Great. So should I move on to the next?
Yes, do please. We'll whiz through people and get to the event planning. So people, that's the third P. Successful events cannot function without engaged staff. That goes without saying. Nobody enjoys being in a space with somebody who's grumpy or doesn't want to be there, basically. So the more you can engage your staff, and this is a direct result of taking on a sustainability process or scheme, it will promote that for sure. Invest in your staff, train them. This is something that we can provide. It doesn't cost much. It's worth every penny, depending on how many. The cost obviously varies, and depending on how many staff would be part of this. And actually nowadays we would do it in Zoom, of course. But investing in staff and training them and allowing them to advance and provide them with incentives, these are all things that will help the engagement of employees. It's really quite vital to get the majority of your employees from local villages and towns. Again, they don't have to travel so far. Some of them might be able to cycle 6 months of the year. So your carbon footprint is lower, which is your greenhouse gas emissions. Local community initiatives. It's important that each year you do this. This is if you sign up to a sustainability process, by the way. You don't have to do that, but if you got certified, you'd need to do this. So, and to create an initiative within your community, what better than to start with members of staff? Ask them, just talk about it. Well, this is what we're thinking of doing. It could be school books, meals, could be adding something to go in their children's playground, something for the elderly, picking up litter one. It's always a good initiative anyway in any business to offer at least half a day or 2 hours once a month for the staff to go out, let's say 2 at a time, and go and do litter picking. And that's part of you then add that to your sustainability journey on your website. You make sure you actually tell that to people. And I think this is something that one of your other presenters is going to cover, isn't it, Susan?
Yes, that's right.
It's very, very important, your sustainability
Thursday.
journey.
Yeah, that session is
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Telling your sustainability story and why it's important to weave through everything that you do, what you're doing from a sustainability perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. Customers, now they're very important. Communicate your sustainability journey, getting buy-in from the business stakeholders. This is all, I partly obviously mentioned that earlier, but your customers are very important because they are basically the public, and creating public awareness is a huge part of growing this process and making it every day. Everybody knows about it. It's so important. It's a huge part of this. And transparency and commitment. Avoid greenwashing. I'm hoping people will understand what that means. Very briefly, if they don't, it's when companies say they're doing something they're not actually doing, or they did it once and then they just didn't do it again. To avoid greenwashing, for the public, your future customers, they're going to be looking for authentic proof of your claims. And one of the best ways to get over this is to actually get a certification which is checked by an independent auditor like me or like us. And then you've got a badge saying you've actually been certified, and it's authentic. And then you're telling your story as well. And you've got a sustainability page on your website. So are there any questions with regards to people before we go on to the next slide?
Lucy, when it comes to people, and I guess if you look at the events industry and hospitality industry actually as a broader environment, there's a lot of younger people within those industries. Do you think that the younger people are driving this agenda and conversation?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I see both. Don't we all? We see that we see the engaged youth and we see the disengaged youth. But the more people that join the engaged, then it's like a wave building. You know, once the wave gets to a certain point, then everybody wants to be part of that wave. So yeah, I see mixed, but there is a lot. I have some young associates working with me, and I get an email every week with somebody wanting to join, which is wonderful. Yeah, there's a lot of momentum there,
which is great. There are a couple of questions in the chat box. So, Michael, what are some of the best ways to prevent greenwashing?
Well, as I said, with the certification, if you have, that is the best type of accreditation, is a sustainability certification, because that means that you have been through the whole process. So a sustainable certification takes into consideration the people, the planet, and the profit. So it's a holistic, all systems look at your business. The certification compliance standards are based on the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. So it's not picked out of thin air. This is based on fact, and it's based on government. Governments have agreed with this, as you know, they've all signed up to that. It's also based, well, mine are based on the Global Sustainable Tourism Council set of standards. So if you've signed up to one and you've started your journey, then you've passed your certification, then you get your badge, and anyone can see and check that badge.
Great. And Emma's asking, would you suggest businesses looked into becoming B Corp members?
Actually, no. I've looked into that, and apparently they don't do independent on-site audits. What they would, I don't know how much it costs. We do independent on-site audits, and that's that's another type of greenwashing. If somebody hasn't checked you, that's got nothing to do with your business, then there's no real knowing whether you're actually doing what you say you're doing, which is exactly what greenwashing is. So if you look at, excuse me, if you look at some of the the big corporates, if they don't have a certification, and I've looked and many of them don't, then we really don't know. It's the only way. It's like having, it's like having a financial audit. That's why that system is in place, to make sure companies aren't cheating, they aren't taking money and not paying tax on it. It's the same thing. That's why it's called an audit, and it's an independent audit. And without that, then it's very difficult to know 100% if it's not greenwashing or not.
Okay, thank you. Should I move on slide?
Mm-hmm. So the one you've all been waiting for, practical easy steps for event venues and hospitality. Do you want to, shall I just answer that question? I don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
There's something about faux plants.
Yes, so Michelle, in terms of real versus faux plants, I'd suggest for planners to research their local flower farms. They're growing seasonal flowers, providing much needed native flowers for pollinators. You're also supporting local businesses.
Yeah.
Most flower farms also have potted plants that they use as part of arrangements. And there's Michelle's very helpfully given a website address as a good place to go to search for local farms. So thank you, Michelle. Everybody can pick that up in the chat box if you're interested in that. So thank you, Michelle. That's a great suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, faux plants are a very good idea, and collaborating with a local business that is providing something. Hiring is great, because then you use it once and it doesn't get thrown away. It just gets hired out to the next person. That's actually a very, very good solution to the plant problem.
Yeah, in fact, if any planners are looking for to hire plants, I know a company who hires out. Well, they'll build a maze. You can hire a maze, but you can also use their plant boxes to create divisions, to queue manage, and frankly, it looks a lot nicer than just your usual kind of barriers. And I know a lot of restaurants, when they were looking at how they were going to screen within their restaurant environments, have created screens that have got living plants within the screen. So again, I think there's some great ways of using flora and fauna in practical use within an event environment. So I'll remember the name of the company and I'll pop it into the chat box.
Great, brilliant. So practical easy steps. First thing to do is to organise a renewable energy supplier for the building. If you are, if you can hook up to that. If you're using generators, there are generators that can be used with bio vegetable oil. That's what it's called. And I do have a link, which I've got, which I can add later on. Susan?
Yeah, sure.
If now sort of stuck on this
my
screen here.
I will be sending the slides out to everybody that's on the call. So yeah, if there's any other information that you've got to share, then I can email it to people afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there are lots of new businesses popping up, supplying these more sustainable solutions all the time, all over the country, which is fantastic. And this is what's going to keep happening. And the more people that support them, the more they will build and grow. So business at its best, really, and it will definitely work.
Yeah, I mean, I think even if you think about things like weddings, where perhaps historically people would have thrown paper confetti, which is not great. I think there's a shift, isn't there, with people using petals as opposed to paper confetti, and really thinking about what impact everything does. And I think couples looking to book a venue, or corporates looking to book a venue, particularly corporates, I think, where they've got a CSR policy which includes sustainability, will start to ask those questions. And in fact, on tomorrow's session, we've got some event planners who specialise in looking at the sustainability of the events that they run, and their feedback is that more and more corporates are asking about sustainability when it comes to events.
Good. I believe they are, and yes, many of the bigger ones have got their own CSR. Yeah, it is all moving in the right direction, for sure. I mentioned this earlier, but take back policy with your inputs. Your consumables, products, produce should be in portable or durable reusable crates or boxes. Provide filtered tap water in glass stopper bottles. Now, this is obviously to reduce the use of plastic bottles, and you can buy water filters are not expensive. Now, you might be in an area where the tap water is actually really, really nice, but you can filter your own tap water for an event. I'm saying and you can put it in those glass stopper bottles, put a little brand on it, and you can either sell it for £1, 50p, or just give it to an event for free, as you like. Anything but supplying water in a plastic bottle. And I think it's also one of those sort of niggly things where people go out and they think, oh gosh, they always charge a lot more for a bottle of water than a bottle of beer almost. You think, hang on a sec. No. And in events, especially if there's alcohol involved, it's quite a good idea to drink a little bit of water and try and get your guests to drink a little bit of water along the way. And that's how I would suggest you do it. Reduce food wastage. Nearly 30% of produced food, this is globally, is lost or wasted in the chain. So collaborate with your local food, and also you'll have your own wastage. Collaborate with a local food charity. They're everywhere. Not too difficult to I can't give any examples because I don't know where everybody is, but they're not too difficult to find. Shorten your food supply chains. Again, this is another vital thing. Source locally. This will reduce your carbon footprint and also build your local economy. Use only Forest Stewardship Council certified paper products. So this is in your office, not just for the event, obviously, but in your back office, and also for your event products, which I will come to next in the next slide. Toilet facilities. Again, I wasn't sure. Obviously, if you've got a big property and maybe your hotel and you're hosting something, people stay over, there'll be normal sewage available, but there also, I've been to quite a few events where there are these portable toilets. So just make sure that the provider is certified responsibly disposing of after the event. And provide at the event, provide clearly marked recycle bins. And again, the reason for doing this is, okay, customers might not actually want to use them, but your staff, they can easily sort. So there's no maybe there shouldn't be much anyway, but it also helps create public awareness. So they know for sure that whilst they're enjoying their day or their evening, what's going on behind in the scenes, and that it's important to you that you recycle your waste in a responsible way.
Lisa, we have a question, and you've got about 5 minutes to finish.
Gosh.
So
Right.
Any thoughts on batteries, electric vehicles, for example, and also battery powered generators and solar powered generators, which use batteries to store the power? Do you think there'll be an issue with the reliance on batteries going forward and this disposal of these?
That's a good point. I mean, I can't really answer that question because I'm not an expert in electric batteries, but I think I know a lot of providers actually supply, will take back batteries, and I think that's you'll just have to if you get one from a provider that will take it back and recycle it. That does happen, and cars are offering that as well.
Yeah, I went to vehicle testing track before, clearly quite some months ago now, and the guy that showed me around, it was very top secret, I had to leave my phone in the car, was actually not advocating the use of electric vehicles because of the requirement for batteries and the fact that the batteries are charged by electric, and electric is not sustainable. But he was saying that people should wait for the next generation, which will be hydrogen powered vehicles. So I think there's a lot of movement in that way. But for sure, I know locally the refuse tip offers safe and secure disposable way of disposing of batteries. But I think with everything, it's not perhaps as easy as it sounds just to go, well, electric. And quite right, Bex, electric is sustainable if you use a sustainable green certified provider. So it does depend.
Yeah, no, it is. If you, yes, absolutely. It doesn't have carbon dioxide emissions, which to me is a huge positive.
Sure.
So sustainable event practices that you can look for. You asked me to provide questions that event planners can look for. So the number one would be look for a sustainability certification badge. Filtered water, free or small charge for stopper bottles, which I covered mostly just before, or just sell glass bottle brands depending on the quality of the customer if they just don't want tap water, filtered or not. There are always that kind of customer. Flowers, again, we touched on this, potted, combined with various types of greenery, easily sourced, free, such as ivy. Reusable decorations, and no plastic-based ones, especially confetti. You mentioned that earlier. Yeah, I mean, that has been changing slowly over the years, hasn't it? But again, it's just none whatsoever. People, flower petals, beautiful. They do look beautiful, but the actual energy and natural resource consumption going into petals is quite substantial as well. FSC certified paper products, so all your invitations, napkins, handheld food plates, if that's the kind of event that you're doing, please try and find them that they don't maybe look as pretty, but they've been sourced in the right way. We need to use up our recycled paper matter. Only use biodegradable balloons. Again, I looked on the internet and they are available. They're made from rubber, which is biodegradable. It's a natural product, as we know, if we remember the rubber plantations of the East.
Just on that, there's a question, Lucy. What are your thoughts on helium balloons? Even if they are biodegradable, are the helium releases bad environmentally?
Good question. I don't know the answer to that, to be honest. Helium. It's not a word that's come up, so I'd have to check. Yeah, I don't like to pretend to know, so I'll say I'm not sure, actually.
So can you perhaps
I'm going to write that down.
Read that back, Bex. Thank you for the question.
I think helium is the one that rises. I'm thinking from my children's parties a long time ago. So the only negative thing about helium balloons would be that if they did get loose, then they're now wafting off into the environment. They actually make helium balloons that are biodegradable. Interesting. Okay, I'll have a look at that.
Okay, and there's another question. May I know your views on sustainability standards such as GRI, SASB, LEEDs, TCFD, MSCIs, etc.? Are they reliable certifications?
I'd need to have a look at that separately. LEEDs is for buildings, isn't it? Depending on how that's spelt. I can't see it anywhere.
LEEDs, it's spelled as in the town, but I don't know whether that's...
Yeah, I think that's the building. Yeah, definitely. GRI, I don't know. What were the other ones?
SASB.
I don't know what that is.
TCFD and MSCI.
MSCI, that's not the marine stewardship one, is it?
I don't know. That's the question. So again,
does she want to have a chat?
No, that's from Michael. That's from Michael.
Oh,
so,
Michael, sorry.
Yeah, we've got a minute. So okay. I think what I'll do is I'll make sure that Lucy has that question and can answer you directly on that.
Yeah. Well, I think we talked about earlier, I am offering one-to-one free advice over the phone, well, over Zoom, whatever, at any time. Just have to get in touch. I think Susan's going to share my details with everyone.
Yes, so
come back to both these if I've got contact details from these two individuals.
Yes,
I'll be very happy to, because I'm learning all the time. We all carry on learning, so yeah, always happy to find out new things.
Okay, great. And it is now 11 o'clock, so and I can see that a few people have started to drop. For those that are happy to stay on, then Lucy, if you want to finish.
Yeah, we can just do the last slide, but we're nearly there.
Yeah, okay.
So the last slide is about the benefits of running a more sustainable business. Obviously, enhanced brand reputation, building public awareness, which creates positive consumer demand and positive change, driving positive change, being the leader in your sector or your area. Who doesn't want to be the leader? I came up with this idea first, I'm going to do this, and then everyone copies you or follows you. It's marvellous. What more do you want for your social media outlets? Attract new customers, new business. Yes, you'll attract the corporates. Anybody that's interested. This thing is now getting some serious momentum. Don't listen to the doubters, because they will get run over in the stampede, literally. Within 5 years' time, I predict that a sustainability certification, some kind of accreditation, is going to be an absolute must for pretty much any business there in this industry. It will improve your employee engagement and relations, without a doubt. And staff retention, definitely, they'll want to stay working to you. People want to work for sustainably run companies. I see it all the time, and I've spoken to a backpacking business in London called Beds and Bars, and they have excellent staff retention. And they actually use a company called Invest in People, which is a program that you can sign up to. Forgive me, I have no idea how much it costs, but it works very well for them. And if you don't have a high staff turnover, then you don't keep having to train them, and somebody has to spend time. Like the manager has to stop doing what he normally does, and he has to train the new staff, and so on and so forth. So staff retention and improving staff engagement is actually, it's going to save you money at the end of the day. So. Lovely. Any more questions?
Doesn't seem so.
No. Okay.
So, well, thank you for that, Lucy. That was really informative. I hopefully have videoed this, in which case we will share a link to the video in course. One last question. Do you have any alternatives for cling film?
Yeah, there are. There's a beeswax or a waxed sheet that you can buy. They're readily available now. They've been around for a number of years, but they don't come on a roll that you pull out like that. I believe there's quite a lot of choice in that area. but it's waxed. They're called waxed. Well, if you searched online, it would be replaced. Sustainable replacements for.
And they are relative. They are easy to find.
They're very easy to find.
Yeah,
wax wraps. There we go.
Yeah.
For mass catering. So this is for when you're transporting your ready-made food. Is it, Gita?
I guess my suggestion would be, for commercial kitchen use. My suggestion personally would be reusable plastic boxes. Sorry to say the word plastic, but boxes that you can reuse rather than using cling film. I don't know what yours.
Yeah, would you not? I mean, surely the catering business has got big containers that you can put a lid on. I mean, I'm not in the catering business, so I don't know, but they must be. There will be products out there, and I know that vegware, they certainly have, the whole thing will be.
And you can get rubber tops,
stretch
to go over the top of boxes and bowls and things. So again, they're reusable rather than using cling film. So I think it's about a container with a reusable lid rather than the use of cling film.
Yeah, I'll have a look though. I have a feeling, I was talking to somebody that runs the Natural Bar Co, and I think he's found an alternative to cling film that's a bit like cling film, but I need to check that.
Sure. And I think
Friday we can come back with all these things maybe.
Yes. So on Friday, all of the speakers that are taking part in the summit during the course of this week will be rejoining us, plus a couple of other guests. So there will be a panel discussion. So we'll come back to some of these questions potentially on that session, but certainly we'll make sure that we've got back to everybody. The other thing, thank you, Lisa. Large bamboo containers with lids, rice husk or stainless steel if you don't want to source plastic containers. Thank you, Lisa. And
Michelle. Yeah, there's lots. Yeah, I think it's just changing the way you package your food. I think that's the thing.
I'm also thinking maybe take a look at a business within hospitality that has great sustainable credentials. So I'm thinking of a restaurant, the name of which has now currently escaped me, but I will remember it, where they've literally taken apart everything that they do and looked at it from a sustainability perspective. So maybe have a look at somebody who's actually put into operational practice some of the things that could and would work within your own business. So Emma's suggesting there are plant-based alternatives to cling film.
Yeah, that's what I thought I heard. I had heard that. I think there are. It's slowly coming. And the next biggest problem that we're going to have, I hate to say this, but the next biggest problem is the fact that we're creating all these compostable things and we don't have enough municipal composting facilities. But that's another story.
Well, Lucy, thank you very much. I mean, it's certainly generated some great suggestions and conversation within the group chat. So thank you.
You're very welcome, and thank you very much for inviting me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you. And thanks everybody for joining. If you haven't already done so, please check out what's happening for the rest of the week and do join some of the other sessions. But thank you everybody.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Very welcome.